right, welcome everyone. This is Darshell Lynette, and my host today is going to be Dr. Natoya Coleman, and we're going to be discussing how the pandemic has affected children in school. She is a principal, and she can give you just a small, inkling of everything she does and stuff, and then we'll go into the questions we're going to be discussing today. So, Dr. Coleman.
Thank you so much, Shell, for having me on your podcast. I'm so honored to be in conversation with you tonight. So, as you shared, I'm an elementary principal. My school is in Flint, Michigan. Mm-hmm. And so I have the privilege of serving about 200 scholars, grade kindergarten to sixth grade. And my school is in a very unique situation because many people know, you've seen it on CNN, you've seen it on all of the major news outlets, the conditions in the city of Flint, Michigan, mm-hmm. with the Flint water crisis. Mm-hmm. Before the Flint water crisis, we were dealing with extreme challenges related to poverty due to the decline of the automotive industry. Flint is an automotive town. It was one of the largest locations of the automotive plants in the 1960s and 70s. And with the decline of the automotive industry that started around the late 70s and into the 80s, we lost a lot of jobs. So we deal with serious issues of poverty. And then now recently, the global pandemic has impacted us. So we are triply compounded with issues in our town. But let me tell you about my babies.
Yes.
Today, our attendance, 85% of our school population was in school.
Oh my gosh, that is awesome.
My kids are coming to school. And I had about 30 kids absent today. And I can tell you where all 25 out of the 30 kids are.
Wow.
Parents are calling saying so-and-so was sick, our car broke down. I can tell you where the vast majority of my children are. So
that is so awesome.
I want to lift up both sides of that narrative, mm-hmm. because a lot of people want to spend a whole lot of time talking about the issues that we have in Flint. Mm-hmm. But I just need the people to know that my kids are coming to school every day.
Listen.
They want to be in school, and they are giving it everything they have. And my parents are working as hard as they can to give our scholars everything that they need. So I'm privileged to be in this environment in my school. And right now, there is no other place I would rather be.
Absolutely. So I am so honored to have you. As in case people don't know, we have a little bit of background. We actually met in Full Gospel through the organization Full Gospel Baptist Church, where I had been working, and then Dr. Coleman, I'm gonna call her. I don't usually call her that, but I told her we got to flex on this name, because that's a huge accomplishment, and I want her to be honored at all times for that. So Dr. Coleman actually came in and was assisting on the team that I work on with Full Gospel. And so that's how we got connected. And we've been friends and like sisters. She's like a little sister to me ever since. And I love her to death. And so when I was given this question, actually by another one of our friends that we are connected to, and since I didn't clear it with her, I ain't gonna say her name on here, but she said,
I know who you're talking about though.
Okay, hi. And so she actually asked about this, and I said, that would be a good topic to talk about. So today we're going to be talking about, like I stated, how the pandemic has affected children in school, because a lot of people haven't really thought about how it actually has affected them. We were looking at us as this is something we've never gone through, but we never thought about it from their standpoint either. This is something completely different from them. We didn't have to do virtual school ever. That wasn't, unless you went to college, you did online, and that was a chosen option if you decided to do that. But this is something that, just completely interrupted their learning. And so I was thinking about that when when me and our friend was talking about it, and I said, I wonder like what, like possibly if there's statistics even out at this point about it now, or how it's affecting the kids. So let's get into it. So my first question is, what kind of disadvantages has the pandemic caused students that weren't prior there? So like if something they didn't even think about before, what has actually happened now that the pandemic is still going? So let's make that clear. It's still ongoing, people.
So it's interesting because a lot of the disadvantages that existed prior to the pandemic were exacerbated through the pandemic.
Okay.
So we shifted from being in school, coming to school every day. And when you think about coming to school every day, you have the free and reduced lunch program,
right,
where we provide meals to the scholars for breakfast and lunch. We have transportation that's provided to the scholars. We have particular programs. Just by virtue of being in the schools, the students are able to focus on their learning, and they're not subjected to the environments in their homes that impact whether or not they can learn.
Right.
And so when we shifted from, or pivoted from, in-person learning to online learning, it was the responsibility of the school district to pick up the slack and and find out what the needs would be for scholars. So what that meant was we had to provide Chromebooks, we had to provide computers to students, because we couldn't just assume that everybody had a device at home to work online. We had to provide hotspots for our scholars, because we couldn't just assume that everybody had internet, Wi-Fi.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Yep. So we had to provide that technology for them. But here's where it became very interesting. We found that a lot of parents were not technologically savvy. So they didn't know how to use the Chromebook. They didn't know how to use the hotspot. So I became an administrator, an IT person.
Kind of overnight, huh?
I became, what is it? This genius. What is it? What is it when you buy something from Best Buy, and if you
I can't remember. It is the oh gosh, I know what you're talking about though. Yes. Like the IT people that actually you take it to, like that can get stuff fixed if they can't, talk you through it over the phone and stuff like that. I can't remember the exact name, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yes, we became that, and we began fielding phone calls every day from parents who were just trying to help their babies log on.
Oh my gosh.
I just need to help my child log on. So that was something that I wasn't anticipating. But we really just had to bridge the gap in terms of access.
Okay.
Because we could not just throw the devices at the parents, throw the Chromebooks at the parents, and just assume that everything was going to be okay.
Right.
We also provided meals. So we had breakfast. We had meal distribution twice a week for families to be able to come up. So the same lunches that we would give them during the school day, instead of warming them up in the oven, we kept them frozen, and we provided them to families, and they could come and pick them up in bundles, if you will, for all of their students who were members of our school community. And we provided food boxes. With Flint being a town that was already in the midst of a little bit of a social crisis, there were already organizations that were providing food to our families. So we took the food that was allocated from the district, as well as food from these other nonprofit organizations, and we just created these big, huge boxes of food that we could send home to families for dinner and lunch and breakfast during the time of the pandemic, where scholars weren't coming to school for their meals. Okay. So it really just became this all around sort
Just
of.
like a one-stop shop type of
It was a one-stop
situation.
shop. It was.
Oh my
It still
goodness.
is. It still is. And so even when we have to pivot and go to virtual, when
Mhm.
cases become high, then we just take our lunches and breakfast and just box them up and tell families they can come up and get them.
Okay.
Um,
So now when the pandemic first started and we were doing like the virtual situation had just occurred, were the parents were they having were they having to come to the school to actually get the meals and then bring them home, or how was that actually happening? And then what happened with the people who didn't have transportation to get the meals? Were you having to like rent vehicles to take them to them, or what was going on then? Okay.
Let me tell you that I love everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I love us for real.
On, for real. Yes. When I say it's been touching my heart for you to call them, just not saying the students, but the scholars. I'm here for this. Like big
and like I'm telling you, like when we came upon situations where people had, so we did at the beginning of the pandemic. We didn't know anything about COVID, so it was very much this. It was very much like like 6 feet social distance.
Right.
Wear your mask. Wear your mask. Right.
It was gloves, everything, Lysol down bags,
hazmat suits. Yes. Like it was very much like I love you, but right. So at the beginning of the pandemic, it was a drive-through. So we had a drive-through. Families came through and picked up devices. We handed it to them. We gave them the paperwork on a clipboard. They gave it back to us. We gave them the device. They went on their merry way, right?
Okay.
Like, literally like 5 minutes. And so for the families who couldn't come up to the school, I cannot tell you how many homes I visited myself.
Oh my.
Like, I just pulled up like, hey, you didn't come get your device? I got the paperwork. I got the computer.
Oh my goodness.
You know, and so and that's why I said I love us, because it's that kind of by any means necessary.
Absolutely.
You know, you don't have a car. It's all good. I'll be there after work, or I'll be there in 20 minutes. And the secretary was jumping in the car with me and we were going, or the counselor was jumping in the car and we were going. And sometimes I went by myself. You know, there was some families who just couldn't get the internet right. So, you know, it's nothing I can say over the phone, no instructions. I try to text message instructions, try to email instructions. It wasn't working. Right. So I got in my car and I went to the house and give me the computer. Let me see. Let me set it up. I fixed it myself, you know. So, and I talked about that in my dissertation, just about how our instincts, like particularly Black women, the instincts of Black women kind of kick in the field of education. Yes. And it's just like we take on the issues of our children and we go about fixing them in ways that we would if they were our own children. Like, absolutely. They become our own children. And it's like, whatever it takes. I just a couple of weeks ago, I grabbed some food up and just dropped it off, like knocked on the door. The oldest child was one that I worked with when I worked at the high school, and the younger two are at my school that I'm at right now. So I'm like, hey, y'all got 3 of our babies. I'm bringing 3 food baskets. Knocked on the door. The high schooler answered the door. I'm like, hey, you remember me from last year? Here go your food. Tell your mama I said, hey. Listen. You know, and that's just what it is. So
I think, and that's with us just having, like you said, the community that we have that inside of us. It's always like, no matter what it is, if we go out, we could not even know the child and we see a baby sitting there, you need some food. Wait a minute, hold up, where your mama at? Oh, we ain't seen, why we looking for your mama? We fit to take you to go get something. And I think that's just, I do that and I don't even think about it at all. Like, and it's sometimes, like you said, it's over for us, but no matter what kid it is, you always want to just make sure you take care of that. And I think that's just that instinct that we have inside of us, just to be those caregivers and just do exactly what it says, give care wherever it needs to be given. And so I remember the name, it's the Geek Squad.
The Geek Squad.
Geek
That's
Squad.
me. I need a t-shirt. I need
Yes,
to join the Geek Squad.
indeed. So with all of that, it's like, oh my gosh, just, I mean, like I said, I didn't even think about either the smaller details of, somebody not having internet, not being able to know how to connect the internet and stuff. I have to try to do that in my job now, or when I first started. I work at Costco, y'all, over the phone, trying to explain to some of the senior saints how to place an order. So I completely understand what she's talking about, because like it is a virtue, and God has helped me with this. Yes, that trying to explain over the phone technical stuff, and it's like, it's right there. This is what I'm talking about, and they don't know what you're talking about. It's like, oh my gosh, and I could just imagine. So, is your population of the school, is it more African American students, or is it like a mixture? Do you have more Caucasian, more Hispanic, and even like with that, do you have like, was there a language barrier trying to get some of this stuff set up? Like if you have Hispanic or Asian students or anything like that?
No, it's 80% Black.
Okay.
And I only, out of the time that I've worked in this district, I've only dealt with one person who was multilingual.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's not, I haven't really had any language barriers.
Okay.
But definitely differences in access. So differences in ability to navigate computers, and
right.
Even when we try to have parent meetings on video conferencing sites, like there's barriers there, those are the kind of, access has really been the major barrier. But we have so many resources that I can honestly say that the barriers haven't hindered our ability to meet the needs of the scholars.
That's excellent. So like when you said that you guys had to provide hotspots and stuff like that, I know that stuff is money. So is that type of stuff, was that some of the stuff that the government was giving to the institutions to be able to supply that to the children? Okay, awesome. Because I was like, how is we coming out?
So there's already, because we are a high needs district, we already receive quite a bit of grant funding.
Okay.
To provide supports. But it was really up to the school to decide how they were going to utilize that grant funding.
Okay.
And the utilization was based on what the school felt was the immediate need. And some schools didn't feel like technology was the immediate need before the pandemic. So, but when the pandemic came, everybody felt like, oh, we got to use our money to get devices. So the first go round, schools were able to use that money to buy devices. But then the district then pivoted and started investing. There were funds that were given to districts specifically to support them through this pandemic. Okay. And they were able to use those funds to bolster the district's technology needs.
Excellent.
And staffing needs. And they gave our teachers bonuses for coming to work during a global pandemic, when they could have easily said, we're not coming. I'm gonna take leave, right? So it was just a lot of supports that we got from the government. Sort of like school, it was like school-based PPP loans.
That's good.
To try to help us make it through.
That's good. Well, I'm glad, because I was like even thinking about that with one of my nieces in Arkansas. The same thing. She had to go get a Chromebook and stuff like that. And I was thinking about that. I was like, where is this funding? But I never, before I was given this question about how is this affecting the children, I just didn't think about it anymore, because I don't have any school-age children. So my next question would be, how are the interpersonal skills that the students were learning before that are no longer being practiced consistently? How is that being affected because of the pandemic? Because I know, like, again, us growing up, we were social, so we could, learn different skills and stuff like that. That stuff, because they especially if it was those that were just starting in school, like in elementary, and they had never experienced anything else. They just had that. So they're just going from the first time, and now they're going virtual. Like, what was the differences in that?
Really, you hit the nail on the head. And that's the question that not many people are asking, particularly I would even go so far as to say early elementary. So like kindergarten, first grade, second grade.
Right.
And in my career, I didn't really talk about my experience in education, but really quickly, I'm going into my 17th. This is my 17th year. 14th year.
Okay.
I'm going into my 14th year in the field of education.
Okay.
And I spent all of the years prior in secondary.
Wow.
Secondary and post-secondary. So I've taught grades 7, 8, 9, 10, and 12. And then undergraduate college students and graduate students.
Okay.
And so this year is my first year as an elementary school principal.
Wow.
I've not been in elementary school before this year. And so your question is so critical because our kindergartners and first graders have never been in school before.
Right.
This is their first time being in school.
And
then our second graders were only in school for a half a year.
They
came out.
Yes.
Because of the pandemic. And so what we're seeing is challenges, not necessarily, I think everybody in the world is experiencing social, emotional challenges.
For sure.
Due to the shift and the change in our social environment, which looks different for a lot of different groups.
Right.
Like, for example, if you live in New York, you weren't really able to get out and get fresh air because it was congested.
Right.
Versus if you lived in a suburb where you could actually stay outside and you didn't have to be stuck in the house all day.
Right.
Versus if you're married and or if you're in a relationship or you have a partner, so there's somebody in the house with you, versus someone who is single, who has spent the whole 2 years in isolation.
Yes.
Right. So we all got emotional stuff going on, right?
Exactly.
And the kids are a part of that.
Right.
Okay. So it's whether or not their parents chose to engage with them during that time, or if they have the capacity to deeply engage with them during that time, or if they didn't have the capacity to deeply engage. And so the kids were doing this the whole time on the devices, right? And I can't even tell, to be honest with you, in this school. I don't know, what kind of engagement the kids had while they were at home.
That's scary, because I was thinking about that. Like, it's like the reason why, and when I was thinking about these questions, I was like, I know that I'm a social person. Like you said, everybody has this. The pandemic has affected us all. Me being a social person, I wanted to get out. And so I was like, and you're telling me that I can't. And I was like, oh my gosh. And it started making me depressed. Well, somebody who is in their early development, not knowing how to deal with this, not even knowing the words to explain, Mom, Dad, I don't know why I feel this way, but I feel strange. Like, for the ones, and then those that come in and they're just, okay, now I'm going to school on virtual. Okay. Then you tell them that they got to go back to school now. Yeah, so now, it's like, wait a minute. So I wasn't doing this before. Why do I do it now? And it could be like, it could cause behavioral issues, all kind of things.
Causing behavioral issues.
See, and
the group that I talked to you about, and this is across the district, this is across the country. I even had a friend who's a principal in another city post on her Facebook page, if you know any resources for social work or psychology, or can you please contact me? I have children in the kindergarten, first grade, second grade who seriously need support.
Wow.
Because they never learned how to socialize for a school environment.
Right.
And even if their parents sit them at the table and make them do work, it still does not replace the socialization that happens by being in daycare, pre-K, kindergarten, first grade. Like, we have groups of children who just did not get that.
Wow. And so
what do you think most of my day, Shell, is spent with my kindergarten, first and second graders.
So how do you think that's going to affect them developmentally going forward, because they did not get those skills at that time that it was very critical for them to do it? How is that? What is, or is there any, thoughts or, as to what, and like when you said that they had allocated funds for, monies for technology, is there allocation of funds for this included? Because like, obviously we need to have some type of, some counselors, obviously some more counselors on standby, but is there something that is going to be set up possibly through the healthcare system in Michigan where kids can actually go talk to a therapist if they need to do that? Is that something that's even, thought about or in the works or anything like that?
Listen, if you're a counselor in Michigan and you need work, I can help you right now. The other part about this is that there's a huge shortage in the field of education for teachers and social workers and counselors. We are dealing with a personnel shortage. And so, yes, we do have, the public health system does offer counseling and does offer those kinds of supports, but we just need the personnel to be able to meet the need. And so I think that I don't think that it's too late, and I don't think that the children will be permanently scarred. But I think that the same things that are needed to help them to be successful in school, like if we're able to implement these structures to help them be successful in school, these same things will help them to navigate these challenges later along in their lives. Like, once you learn the ability to cope, once you learn the ability to identify your emotions and your feelings and address them in healthy ways, those are kind of skills that carry you through. So and then also the benefit is that they're younger, they're still learning. And so it's better for us to try to course correct now than, if they're 30,
Exactly. I completely agree.
I have optimism for them, but I do think that we really need to be intentional about getting them the supports that they need.
Awesome. Well, that actually leads into my next question, because you said that. So my next question was, should parents consider placing their children in therapy to combat the possible, long-term mental effects that the pandemic has actually caused, especially those that are, like you said, in kindergarten, elementary and stuff like that, that may not have been able to solidify those skills that they needed to go? Should they go ahead and start doing that now if that's an option for them to do? Or you think like you said, it could be something that could be course corrected at school now that they're getting back to going to school? Is that something like maybe, too preemptive, or, what do you think? What are your thoughts about that?
I'm a ride or die. I'm going to go back to my original point. I'm going to say, I love us for real.
Listen.
I love us for real, in good times, bad times, with the things that we do well and with the things that we probably need to grow and kind of be a little bit more advanced in. And I think that therapy is one for our community that we really need to open our hearts and our minds to just a little bit more. And I think that we are averse to therapy, and I think it's detrimental. Our aversion to therapy is detrimental to us. And I think that absolutely parents should consider placing their children in therapy if they feel that the children are having a difficult time making the adjustment to this climate that we're in, where sometimes we're social and sometimes we're not, where you have to wear the mask, or you can go without the mask, or don't shake their hand, you can't hug everybody, that all those social rules that go in and out, like sometimes they're on and sometimes they're not, and sometimes I can play with my friends and sometimes I can't, sometimes I can go to school, and so that's a lot for children.
Absolutely.
And
It's a lot for adults.
it's a lot for me. Okay.
Right.
It's a lot for me.
Yes.
So I really do think that parents should pay close attention to the mental health of their children.
Okay.
And if it seems like these adjustments are causing extreme emotions or extreme reactions, like extreme anger or extreme sadness, or they don't have buoyancy, so like they're not shining the way that they normally shine, or they're not bouncing back, like they get sad and then they stay sad longer than what they usually do. These are signs that they really need some support with learning how to make the adjustment. And I really think that we in our community, as people of color, as Black people, we really need to take advantage of the opportunity that therapy brings. I posted something on my Facebook page the other day that if your heart can get sick, or your liver can get sick,
yes,
or your blood can get sick, then if those major organs can get sick and need medical attention, why is it so hard for us to believe that things can happen to us that can cause our mind to also need medical attention? And it's really just as simple as that. And I think that if we would embrace that a little bit more, it would be incredibly beneficial for our children.
That's good. I completely agree. There is so many things that I think, as now that I'm getting older, and as a person who's actually gone through therapy, and one of my actual sisters, it has a doctorate. She teaches psychology right now in Arkansas. And knowing that, I was at first, when she got into it, I was like, we don't do that. But that was something that I was taught when I was younger, because we as Black people were taught, like, you don't go to therapy unless you crazy or something is wrong with you. And especially growing up in church, it was like, oh, well, you definitely don't you need to pray about it and go on. Well, I believe God has graced and given some of us and gifted some of us that type of spirit where we can actually help. And that, just like he gives people the grace and the gift to be able to be a doctor, to be able to surgically work on somebody's body, I think it's the same way where they can actually be a tool to be able to be used to be able to talk to somebody and bring healing through just speaking to somebody, and help you get through certain things. Me going through therapy just, recently and stuff like that, my first round, because I've made it up in my mind, I want to actually have a therapist on hold and on call and stuff like that, just because, like, I know there are some times that I might just be like, hey, doctor, I need to talk to you. Can we get an appointment in? Because I might just need to go through some things, in my mind and talk some things through. And I know that if I'm able to do that, then I can be a well-balanced individual. And so I definitely want that for our children, because they're going to grow up to be adults. And so they need to be able to learn how to do this. And just like we had to navigate this, something that was completely different. And, we have to think about how this is affecting them and how it's going to affect our world going forward. So yes, I definitely agree with you. They definitely should, if you have the option, get them in therapy. Even if it's, if it's just a few sessions that your insurance allows, let them go through them few sessions, because that may just be the turning point that may be able to help them to adjust for what has actually occurred so far in their lives.
Absolutely.
Okay, so the last question I have, this was actually kind of an addendum to the last question. If the parents don't have options for the therapy in their healthcare, do you know if there's options available, or do you guys have resources set up for them to contact places that they can actually get their children, somebody that they can actually talk to?
I would definitely ask the parents to contact the school.
Okay.
Because for me, I have several different pathways that I can take to get my kids, my scholars, some support, right?
Excellent.
So, and it just depends on the situation. But
right.
I have the county. Our county has a health program that provides counseling services.
Okay.
Then our school district has counselors on site. And then if the student is learning support, where they're special education, we have special education counselors, and those social and behavioral counseling needs are written into their individual education plan, so that
Awesome.
they're by law they're required to have this happen for them within a specific period of time. So that's one of the incredible blessings of being in this position, because when a need comes my way, I got a whole smorgasbord of options that I can pull from to try to get them the support that they need. So a lot of families don't know that these options are available.
Right.
And so you don't know, kind of, you have not because you ask not.
Indeed.
So if you don't have the support through your insurance, contact the school and let them know what you're seeing at home, the behaviors that you're seeing. Be as detailed as you possibly can. Pay attention, take notes, and tell your principal or your child's teacher what is going on. And then based on the information you provide, they can lead you in the direction that will help you get the support you need.
Awesome. Okay, so now my true last question that we have for tonight. So, what are some positive things that you see the children have gained during the pandemic as students?
Honestly, it's like finally you guys see that we can learn on our devices. Finally, you won't be talking to us about those kids always on those cell phones, always on those computers. You're not doing nothing but looking at YouTube all day, you know. Now it's like we're telling them to pull out the computer and telling them to pull out the cell phone and telling them to get on this app and that app. You know, I'm a millennial, so my phone, I always have my phone.
Yes.
I always got I got my stuff all queued up. Like, I am not anti-technology. So, but for so many years, we have had these opinions, these preconceived notions about the dangers, the distractions associated to technology. And that stigma, I am finding, is slowly but surely dissipating because of how heavily dependent we are on technology in this climate. So you hear a whole lot of people yapping a little less about about that dog on Facebook, you know, all the stuff on Facebook now, right?
Exactly.
You used to be preaching, you need to get on Facebook and you need to open up your word. And now they're telling everybody, get on Facebook.
Follow us on Facebook.
But anyway, so I'm actually working on an innovation grant to get some virtual reality goggles for my students, so that they can go all over the world, you know, go to Egypt, go to Asia, you know, go to Japan, go to China, like, and just see the world through these virtual reality goggles. And just, we are welcoming in our community in ways that we wouldn't before technology. And so now the experiences that scholars are having in the classroom are a little more closely connected to the things that they actually care about, right?
Awesome.
And so now we're not just talking about STEM and STEAM, but we're bringing that into the classroom. And then I'm hoping that not only will we bring the virtual reality goggles into the classroom, but we'll then teach them about coding and about how not only can you do video games, but you can do 3D video games. And then you can put your 3D video games on the metaverse. And then we can get them on the Oculus, you know. And so, like, just really kind of trying to bring it
on and on
full circle for them in a way that actually is embraced in the classroom, and not, oh, you need to go STEAM, but you need to be an engineer. But no, you can actually, the things that we're using to teach you, you can actually create those in STEAM fields. So that has been a definite plus.
Awesome. That is awesome. I am so glad that you were able and willing to join me on one of my first episodes that I'm having on my podcast. I really appreciate you, Dr. Coleman. You are such, I love you so much. And you definitely are going to have to come back when we are just talking about some other stuff. But I am so excited, and thank you so much for all of the information that you share with us. And can you give the people your socials and stuff like that so they can follow you and all of that in the social verse?
Absolutely. So my website, natoyadcoleman.com, is the hub. I have a business called Vision Education Services where I do professional developments for school leaders. You can find me on Instagram, Natoya D. Coleman, or Twitter. That's where I go on my education rants.
Come on.
Dr. Natoya D. Coleman. Oh, Instagram is Dr. Natoya D. Coleman. Twitter is Dr. Natoya D. Coleman. And mostly Twitter is where I chit chat about the things related to education.
Awesome. And I will definitely have all of those details below for you guys to check out in case you missed it. Thank you so much again for joining us today. And I hope to see everybody on the next episode.
Thank you. Adios, people.
Bye-bye.
Bye.